You've got questions about BOI reporting, and I've got answers for you. Today, we're going to talk about what to do if you have a holding company and you're trying to report for BOI, and what does it look like if you have a multi-member LLC? What does it look like if you have really small revenue? Do you still need to report your BOI information? So all of that and more. This video is about your frequently asked questions, so stay tuned for that. First, I want to give a big shout out to today's sponsor, and that is Relay. Relay is a banking platform built specifically for small businesses, and they have all the tools that small businesses need to help manage their cash flow. So some of those things that I really like is I love the fact that you can set up bank accounts super quickly. You can do it just online at any time of the day. You can also issue physical or virtual debit cards to team members, which is great. And then I really love, not because I have this much money, but because I hope to one day, and also I have clients that have this much money, that you can have up to $3 million in FDIC insurance through the banking platform. So all of those things, there's many, many more features in Relay. If you want to learn more about Relay and how it can help your small business, go to claracfo.com/relay. And specifically for people who are watching the Clara CFO channel, if you want to set up an account, Relay is matching your first $100 deposit. So if you set up a Relay account, you get approved, and you fund it with at least $100, Relay will match that $100. So if you want to go check that out, please go to claracfo.com/relay. All right, so this is the third video we've done on BOI reporting. So the first one was really just about general, everything about BOI reporting, why we're doing it, things you need to know, things you need to consider, stuff you'll need to actually file. And then the second video we did was about actually doing it for yourself. So if you didn't want to hire a third party to do this for you and you wanted to keep the money in your pocket, you could go and do the DIY, follow along with the DIY video. And I actually went through online through the platform and did step by step, and actually went through filing my own business's BOI report so that you could see exactly what you needed to know. So from those two videos though, there were questions because, these videos can't cover every single scenario. So now the questions are starting to roll in, and that's what this video is for, to help you answer some of those common questions. And I have a theory that anytime one person takes the time to comment on YouTube and has a question, that there's probably other people that have that same question. So I like to generate videos that will help the people who are actually commenting. And I also want you guys to know that I am reading those comments. So always, please, whenever you're watching any of my videos, feel free to comment below. And so what I'm doing in this video is I'm actually going to take those viewer comments. I've stripped out the name of the viewer, totally public information, but what I'm going to do is put the comment here so we can see what is the question, and then I'm going to simplify it, and then I'm going to answer it for you. All right, here's the first question. Once you file, will they issue a number, ID, or document to confirm that you've registered? Are you required to do anything else after submitting your report? So the real question is here, once I file, do I have to do anything else? And the answer is no. But what you do want to do is save some kind of record that you have filed this report. So when you get done with your submission, and you will have the option to go to download your transcript. That is if you're watching my DIY video, it's towards the end because it's at the end of the submission. So you can go and see exactly what that screen looks like. And once you download that transcript, save it somewhere so that you have a file for it. The other thing I want to tell you is that they should have emailed you. So whatever email you use to register, and when you're going through and doing your report, you would have received an email that said, and I will read this, it says beneficial ownership information report, parentheses, BOIR, submission status, filing successful. So if it wasn't successful, I'm sure there would be some kind of other terminology there. I don't know what that is because my filing was successful. You will get an email confirmation. So that's all you need to do. You really don't need to do anything else unless something in your business changes about your beneficial ownership. So if something about you has changed, maybe you change your name or you change your address. Like if your driver's license gets updated and has a new address on it, you need to go and change that. Or maybe you take on a business partner and now you have two beneficial owners. Anything like that would need you to go in and change and update the information from your BOI report. But for most of us, this is going to be a one and done. It's going to be, we filed once, our business is never really going to change, and maybe we don't move around much, so we're not going to need to update this over time. So if the beneficial ownership information has not changed, you do not need to update your report. Okay? And there's nowhere else that you have to go and say, hey, I did this, check the box. It's really just filing with FinCEN, and then you're done. All right, let's move on to question number 2. I was wondering if I need to file this report since I just have a small, only handmade business. Okay, so this is a business owner that's saying, hey, I just sell a few little things here and there. Do I really need to report for this? So the question here really is, do I need to file if I'm a very small business? And the answer to that is that it really has nothing to do with how much revenue you make or the size of your business, how many employees you have, anything like that. BOI reporting has nothing to do with that. But it does ask you to report if you have registered with the Secretary of State. So a lot of small businesses will be run as a sole proprietorship. And if you're just doing business under your name as the individual who's doing the business, or you've never actually gone to your state and registered your business, but you might be selling some goods at a craft fair or something like that, or maybe you just do a few services for your neighbor. If you're just earning a little bit of extra income, it doesn't really matter like the volume of that income. It really matters more if you are registered with your Secretary of State. So if you have registered your business with the Secretary of State as a separate entity, and you've created some kind of entity, then you need to report. So really, if I was working at a craft fair and I was an LLC and I have that legal protection of an LLC, maybe I wanted to do that even though I knew I wasn't going to have high volume, I would still need to go and do this BOI reporting. So it really doesn't have anything to do with revenue volume. It's really all about what type of entity you are. Okay, so go back and check out the first video if you want to get a little bit more clarification on that. Okay, here's the third question. What if 2023 was your last year of business and final tax return year, but you did not bother dissolving the LLC until 2024? So here's the thing. So the real question is, if you stopped working in your business and you haven't formally closed it, do you still need to file? And here's the answer. The answer is yes. If you had any kind of active legal entity in 2024, you need to file your BOI reporting, okay? Now, even if you didn't do any activity, even if you took in no revenue and let's say you aren't even going to file a tax return for 2024, you would still, because that entity has not been dissolved, it is still alive and well as far as FinCEN cares about, you need to go and file a BOI report, okay? Now, if you had canceled, let's say the same situation was the same, that 2023 was the last year of business, did the final tax return, and the entity was closed as of December 31st, 2023, and it was not active in January of 2024, January 1st, 2024 or beyond, then you would not need to file. So basically, that's like our hard cutoff line, that January 1st, 2024. If you were dissolved any time before that, you do not need to worry about BOI reporting. But if you had any kind of active legal entity after January 1st, 2024, you are going to need to file, okay? And even if you started a business in 2024 and then dissolved it within the year, you also are still required to do this reporting, okay? So really, if you're in 2024 and you had some kind of active legal entity, it's a reporting company if it doesn't qualify for any of the other exemptions, and you need to file. Okay, now we did go through exemptions in that first video that we did. I'll make sure to link both of those videos below so you can grab those really easily, and they will also be in the cards at the end of this video as well. Okay, let's get into a couple questions that are a little bit more complicated on the actual who is a beneficial owner. Okay, so the first question is, my 5 siblings and I are owners of our family LLC now that our parents have passed away. It was set up in 2011. Do I need to get license pics from all 5 plus mine and add them as beneficial owners? That's the question. So if you have a multiple members in your LLC, whether it's family or it's not family, you need to go through the same steps to determine who is a beneficial owner. So in this case, I would really be asking, how is that ownership set up? Because if it was 100% divided by 6, I need to do that math. So if it was a case where all 6 of these individuals each had equal ownership, that would be 16.66%. So nobody would qualify for that 25% threshold for equity ownership, right? But what we would really need to ask is who has substantial control of those 6 individuals. Now, I'm just assuming that this is 6 equal members here because they're all siblings, but maybe there was 1 or 2 that were put in more substantial control, maybe had a higher interest. Maybe they were like working in the business before and they had a higher percentage. That would need to be taken into consideration. But what I would want to ask here is really who has substantial control. So if you've set it up in an operating agreement that every single person has the ability to make decisions on behalf of the LLC, then maybe everybody would be a beneficial owner. But maybe if, somebody was considered the decision maker and maybe everybody else was more passive members, then it could be a situation that only one person is the beneficial owner. So you would need to go and really understand the operating agreement or understand how this entity really functions. Now, if there is no operating agreement, then you might want to, I would hope there is if there's an LLC, but if there isn't anything established, you would probably want to consider all of them to be if you have mutually decided to only make decisions together. But this might be a situation where you might want to discuss this with a lawyer. So again, none of this is legal advice, but your lawyer might be able to advise you on who in the entity, based on the documents that were set up, should have control of the company. What FinCEN has basically said is they do not believe that there would be any entity that would not have some individual to be in substantial control of it, because it just doesn't make sense. Like, even if you had an entity that had 100 members and each one had 1%, somebody's got to make decisions at the end of the day. So it might not even be an equity owner. It might be a president of the company that doesn't actually own equity. So you need to think about that two-part test: who has substantial control and who has more than 25% of ownership interest. Okay, so it can be complex or it could be very simple. It might be that you all are beneficial owners. It might be that one person is because they're making all the decisions on behalf of the LLC. So there's no quick and easy answer here, but I think that's good for everybody else as you're looking through this to say, do you have substantial control? Which individuals have substantial control? And then which individuals own more than 25% of ownership interest? Okay. Now, I would recommend going and looking at the compliance guides that I will link again in the description box below, because there are some good charts and graphs there that can kind of help you think through, would this person be a person who should be a beneficial owner or not? Okay. And this is a reminder that I love for anybody to be able to do this report on their own and not go and get help. But if you are in a complex situation where you are really unsure, maybe you have multiple entities and you have multiple parties and each one has different percentage ownership, and some are in leadership, some are not, you might want to get some help here. And that's where it would make sense to hire a professional to help you really sort out who would be a beneficial owner and who would not. Moving on to the next question. And this question happened all over, so I don't have an individual question to pull here, but really the question was, what if I have more than one beneficial owner? Do I need to file a new report for each? And the answer is absolutely no. In my DIY video, I forgot to call out this really clear part that I wanted to point out to you now. So we're going to throw this up on the screen. And when you are filing online for beneficial owners, there is a blue box that when you're in the beneficial owner section where you can add a beneficial owner. So you don't need to go and file a new report for that same reporting company and do that for each beneficial owner. You can add all your beneficial owners to this one report. Okay, you actually don't want to do that where you're reporting the same company over and over and over again with different beneficial owners. That's not what you want to do. You want to put multiple beneficial owners for each reporting company on one report. Okay, so that screen share will be super helpful if you're curious about that. If you accidentally add a beneficial owner that you need to remove, there's the remove beneficial owner section as well, or button as well. So no problem there. All right, moving on to the next question here. This question is about fictitious names or DBAs, doing business as. So if in this example, does a DBA need to file a BOI report? So for example, the business owner has a name, Maria Patricia Perez Gracia, and her DBA is Maria Patricia. So does she need to file? So here is the thing. The BOI FAQs that I was reading through specifically called this out to say, If you filed with a Secretary of State or some kind of government entity to register your doing business as name or your fictitious name, doing business as or fictitious names are basically synonymous. Those two things, if you've just registered just to have a separate name, but you're still a sole proprietor and you never actually set up a separate legal entity, then you do not need to file because you're still operating as a sole proprietor. Okay, so what BOI is really trying to pull out are these entities, and when I say entity, that means when you are forming a separate company, you're really forming like a whole different thing. And so what the FinCEN would like to know is who really owns and controls that new thing that was created. But when you just go to your Secretary of State and you say, hey, I'm Hannah Smolinski, but I'm operating as, Hannah Smolinski Bookkeeping, and I'm, and I'm operating as Hannah Smolinski CFO Company, but I'm still filing my taxes as a sole proprietorship. I never actually set up an LLC in that case because I didn't go through the steps to do that and register it with the Secretary of State. I'm just also using that name so people can write me checks underneath that name. Then you do not need to file your BOI report. Okay, so it's really about, did you set up a separate entity or not? That is like one of the big things that we want to pay attention to. Okay. All right. One of the last questions, but probably one of the one that I've gotten asked the most about is, what do you do in a situation where there's a holding company? Okay. Here's the question. If you have a holding company with multiple companies under it, would you do the BOI for the holding company or all the individual companies? So in this question, there's lots of different questions around holding companies. So I'm just going to try to incorporate this all together. And the question really here is, what if the reporting company is held by a holding company? So this happens really often where holding companies will hold other businesses. And really that is part of the reason why FinCEN wants to have us report this information, because they're trying to figure out, you could set up a series of holding companies over and over and over and over again. And then it starts to really get muddy as to who really owns what. And so that is why we are trying to get clear on this information. And that's part of the reason why we have this whole Corporate Transparency Act and why we're doing this BOI reporting anyway. So here's the thing. The beneficial ownership information needs to be reported for an individual. And what FinCEN's position is that they're saying any company has some individual somewhere that's controlling it and is the beneficial owner. So in this situation, what they care about is the operating company is the reporting company. Even if it is owned by multiple layers of holding companies, they don't really care about that. They care about the individual at the end of the day that would be considered the beneficial owner. And you can't even put in information as a beneficial owner of a company. When you get to the beneficial owner information, you'll see that it's not about putting company information in there. It's about putting individual people's names in there. And then you have to upload the ID of that individual. So this is where we have direct ownership and then indirect ownership. So let's say a company was owned by a holding company, and that holding company was owned by 100% by one individual. So that individual is indirectly owning that first level company because they own the holding company that owns that base level company. So it can be a little bit confusing there, but what we're trying to get at is who actually holds the holding company. So that is what you need to report for your beneficial ownership information. There is a really good diagram that I'm going to put up on the screen here. This diagram that I'm showing you is one of the examples that is in the the BOI Small Compliance Guide, which you can find in the description box below. But in this situation, the reporting company here, this reporting company would be the one that is being held by two holding companies, 50% of each, company Y and company Z. And so, in this situation, you don't have an individual. If you didn't look the next layer deep, you wouldn't have an individual to list in your beneficial owners. So you have to go to the ownership of that holding company to then, this is a little different. It's not a true holding company, but it is a company that owns the stock of another company. So we're going to go one layer deep to find the indirect owners. And this is where you would say, okay, who has more than 25% of ownership interest or who has substantial control. So you can read through all of this. What they've determined is that individual A, because it owns 30% of 50% of the reporting company and then 25% and 50% of that reporting company, that they would have more than the 25% interest. So they would trigger that, as well as individual B. Individual C would not have the ownership interest because it's only 25% of 50%, but they would have, because they're a CEO and president, they have that substantial control. So they make decisions on behalf of the business. And then in this situation, there's two other individuals, D and E here, who don't have any substantial control. And then there's this other person over here that makes decisions through board representation, but they don't have any ownership interest whatsoever. And this person would also be considered a beneficial owner. Okay, so this is a really good example. I think I'm glad they put this one in here so that you can see that, there's different layers sometimes to this structure, corporate structure, and you need to really think through different individuals. Again, if you are a business that does have a very complicated corporate structure, it might be good to get help from your legal advisors or somebody who really understands your corporate structure and understands the operating structure of your business so that they can help advise on who would be a beneficial owner here. Now, if you've made a mistake and you need to go back and change any of this, the FinCEN says that's fine. As soon as you find out that you've made a mistake, you need to go and make the changes within 30 days, okay? So there's not any penalties if you've made a mistake. We're all learning here. They just say, hey, go and try to find out, do the best that you can, and then go and change it once you find out that there has been a mistake, okay? One thing I want to clarify for you guys, again, I'm going to look specifically at the guidance and read this to you. So if your reporting company has a corporate entity that owns it, that holding company we're talking about, if that's the case, that corporate entity that's kind of the pass-through, the holding company, you do not need to report for just that corporate entity, okay? Because you are kind of reporting the final entity, you don't have to do one for that flow-through entity, okay? So it says it should not report the corporate entity that acts as an intermediate for the individuals. So if that corporate entity is really just administrative to hold interest in the final reporting company, then you do not also need to do a BOI report for that, okay? So very important, can be complicated. Again, I think most of us will be able to do this by ourselves, and most of us have fairly clear corporate structures, but if you have complexity that you are unsure about, it might make sense to go and hire an advisor, somebody who can help you think through this, somebody who actually understands your business or could get up to speed very quickly. So if that is the case, there are lots of people who can help you do that. I would recommend first going to a lawyer that you already work with for your business, or maybe your accountant that you work with for your business, to see if they could help you with that, rather than going to a third party that doesn't know anything about your business and will not have a consultative process with you. Because if it is complex, you're going to need to have that consultation process, okay? So those are the questions that I think we needed to answer right away. And if you have any other questions, please put them in the comment section below. I will try to do my best to answer them. And I'm learning a lot about this in the process, and I'm happy to answer questions as best as I can. And I will try to just, answer questions in the comments. I don't want to save it for a video if I can answer it right away. So be sure to put it in the comment section. And please be sure to share these BOI videos with any of your friends who own businesses, because a lot of people do not know about this deadline that is coming up very, very, very soon, January 1st, 2025, okay? So if you know any other business owners, please share this information with them, because you don't want your friends to be hit with a $10,000 penalty. I know I wouldn't. And that's part of the reason why I've made these videos, so that you guys can all avoid those penalties as well. So thank you again for watching. Thank you so much for being here. And again, be sure to check out Relay to learn more about their banking solutions, and you can find out more about them in the description box below as well. All right. Thanks, you guys. Bye.